President of the Aging and Disability Resource Consortium of the Greater North Shore, Inc. And this morning, I welcome you to our Congressional Candidates Forum. If you're here for the pep rally group for Beverly High School, you have to go to the other side and get one of those great shirts that they're wearing. If you're here for the Congressional Candidates Forum, please stay. How's that? I'd like to let you know that I'll be moderating this forum with Scott Trenti, who is the Executive Director of Senior Care and the Clerk of the Aging and Disability Resource Consortium of the Greater North Shore, Inc. And why are we doing this? We're doing this because as we're trying to make sure that people of all ages with disabilities of all types and seniors who at times have needs for functional services and supports, that we get access to what we need to live as independently as we choose. And our candidates in Congress representing us have a great deal of influence to ensure that things are done right for us. We want to hear from our candidates this morning about what they're going to do to ensure that we all have our voices heard by them and can make an informed decision when we go to vote. So, all the candidates are going to be here this morning. Scott's going to introduce them one by one. They'll each get to make an opening statement, and then we have some questions that have been developed, which I'll ask each candidate, and then they'll get a chance to do a closing statement, and we'll be done sharply at noon. Is that okay? All right. So I'd like to begin by turning the microphone over to Scott Trenti.
Thank you, Mary Beth. And welcome, candidates. Welcome to the audience as well. First person that will do an opening statement is John Patrick Devine. John put himself through college, attended City College of San Francisco, UC Berkeley, and earned his BA from Harvard University in 1994. He's currently a graduate student at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth in environmental policy. He recently founded a business consultancy and legal support service named Risk Assessment Management. A career paralegal, John has spent more than 8 years with large corporate law firms in corporate legal departments and as a contract consultant providing legal product at legal support companies. He's also worked as an auto mechanic, a taxi cab driver, a house painter, and as a carpenter. John's family has roots both on Cape Ann and in Merrimack Valley. For more than 4 generations, the Devine family has owned a home in Rockport, Essex County, and is originally from Wilmington in Middlesex County. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's time for new leadership. I'm concerned with a deadlock in this do-nothing Congress. Congress sits on their hands while important issues are ignored. We need representatives in Congress working with both sides of the aisle together on important issues. That's what leadership is all about. That's why I'm running for Congress. I'm here to talk to you more about just those issues facing the aging of America and disabled people. As the greatest generation and the baby boomers retire, there are many issues that require attention. What it all really boils down to is efficiency and productivity in the delivery of goods and services. Current members in Congress are not providing productive and effective leadership. I'll tell you about 3 things I'm most concerned about. I'm concerned with income inequality. I'm concerned with climate change in our environment. I'm very concerned with the lack of national mental health care policy. The lack of mental health care policy has a wide-ranging impact, as do these other issues. impact on the elderly, impact on homelessness, on economic productivity, and impact on the cost of delivery of health care, and funds that can be made available to help shore up Social Security and Medicare in the future. As to the economy, we need to create good-paying jobs with equal pay, with a living wage. With all the colleges in this area, we need to encourage high tech in the area with tax incentives. We can't allow all those good-paying jobs to grow in other areas like Silicon Valley and overseas. We need to reinvigorate the manufacturing base here in the 6th District. Over a century ago, Teddy Roosevelt campaigned on campaign finance reform. Corporate special interest money needs to be stricken from campaign financing. A corporation should not be considered a person. Citizens United and McCutcheon must be overturned. Ideas should be more important in politics than money. Legislators need to craft laws to give the judiciary tools they need to make the right decisions. That's leadership. We need to pass balanced budgets. We need to pay down our debt. We need to ensure America's credit rating is where it should be, a AAA status, not AA. The environment, I mentioned, is of utmost importance. To that end, we should build a national aqueduct system. Will help relieve pressure on the western watershed, the Ogallala Aquifer. We can tie that national aqueduct to producing hydroelectric power. Similar to the Tennessee Valley Authority, as a semi-public company, selling hydroelectric power will pay for the aqueduct and create an additional revenue stream. It'll get us away from burning fossil fuels and carbon dioxide emission production. I stand against challenges to privacy and due process. Our Constitution should be amended to protect privacy. The NDA signing is against the Fourth Amendment. The Patriot Act, prison computer data collection, the NSA spying, corporate data mining. These issues are all things that should be forbidden and protected by constitutional protection for privacy. There are many issues facing the Asian Americans as the bulk of our population grows. Medicare and Social Security must be protected. There's about $2 trillion, as far as I understand it, in Social Security trusts right now. By closing loopholes in corporate tax code, by bringing home tax money hidden in offshore accounts from international sales, by passing a flat tax, similar to Elizabeth Warren talks about the Buffett rule. She says you can't get it passed, so that everybody pays their fair share. We can ensure that Medicare and Social Security is endowed into the future. Cost and delivery of medical care must be kept in control. It turns out that 50% of costs in healthcare are accrued by 5% of the population, seeking assistance with repeated emergency room visits due to chronic healthcare needs. Physician access clinics must be established to deal with these populations. Doing so will help lower costs in the delivery of healthcare and associated insurance costs dramatically. The United States desperately requires a national mental health care policy. Gun violence, believe it or not, is a part of a mental health issue. It turns out the Center for Disease Control reports 60% of handgun violence here in this country is for suicide. The APA calls for screening in cases of mental health. This is a preventative health care issue. Get ahead of the issue and help lower costs. Thank you very much.
We also have Jane Militello holding up signs for you all, so she'll give you the 1 minute to what. No, just for the future, so we can move forward. Scott?
Okay, thank you. Our next candidate is Mr. John Guda from Farrell, Pennsylvania. Originally, college, Youngstown University, 5 years, a bachelor's in physics. Steel mill employee, 4 years, college at night. Street lighting research and a development engineer. 14 years working HPS lamp development and product engineering manager with global responsibilities. 6 years that introduced him to planned obsolescence and outsourcing. Consequently, he gave up engineering, studied economic history and theory for the next 10 years, and boiled it all down to a book called For a Fair America, The Cure for Our Sick Economy. Politically, in 1996, he ran for the 6th Congressional District seat. Welcome, Mr. Gruden.
All set? Hi, everybody. Before I plunge into my favorite topic, democracy and economic justice in America, I have a statement of fact to address your parochial concerns. Care for our disabled, sick, and elderly does not have to be cut. It can be greatly expanded, and we can pay for that expanded care forever. So now let me begin. In every society throughout history, there have been 3 classes of human behavior: the predatory, the productive, and the parasitic. The primary economic activity of the predators is always wealth acquisition. They are the takers. America's predators, less than 1% of us, now have a net worth of more than $20 trillion, and the bottom 40% a combined net worth of nothing. Why? Because our laws have been transferring wealth from our producers to our predators for decades. Why? Because our predators have been bribing lawmakers from both political parties with campaign contributions and promises of retirement jobs worth millions. This is plutocracy, and these 2 forms of bribery must end. Unfortunately, thanks to 5 cretins on our Supreme Court who can't see that money doesn't speak, it buys, that end must remain voluntary. Consequently, my campaign will not accept more than $5 from any individual or organization. And after retirement from lawmaking, I would not accept pay for any work in the future. If soldiers can sacrifice their lives or their health for this country, lawmakers can sacrifice their incentives to sell their votes. Other than ending plutocracy, what else am I for? Why should you care? Why should you listen to me? After graduating from high school in Western Pennsylvania, I spent 4 years working in the Shenango Valley Tube Mill. All but one of the valley's tube and steel mills are now gone, bought, looted, and dismantled by predators financed by Wall Street. The predators and their financiers became fabulously wealthy. The towns and the people of the valley were devastated. After graduating from college with a physics degree in 1966, I spent 14 years working in Salem, Massachusetts as a high-pressure sodium R&D engineer. In the early 1980s, I was promoted to HBS Design and Manufacturing Engineering Manager with global responsibilities, and worked in that capacity out of the Manchester, New Hampshire plant for my last 6 years. By 1988, we were making a 15% profit, manufacturing entirely in America, and paying our factory workers over $10 an hour. And then I was introduced to a core economic policy of Reaganism: increase profits by moving factories to third world nations. We were becoming a service economy. I quit Slovenia in 1988, and a few years after I left, most of their factory jobs were in Mexico. Why? Slave wage labor. And contrary to Reaganite propaganda, that is the primary reason that tens of millions of American jobs remain abroad today. Reaganism became our nation's disgrace. Consequently, I gave up engineering entirely, studied economic history and theory for about 10 years, and in 2011 published a book that I titled For a Fair America, The Cure for Our Sick Economy. My campaign website, a summary of that book, uses historical writings and facts to show why we must scrap the predatory money-based economic scheme that Ronald Reagan gave us and replace it with the productive labor-based policies of real capitalism prescribed by rational men, Adam Smith, Lincoln, Locke, and Jefferson among them. Those capitalist policies include the following: tariffs on products made by slave wage labor abroad and a living minimum wage at home. Jeffersonian progressive taxes on estates and all forms of personal income, including stock grants, options, dividends, and capital gains. Federal regulations that promote fair enterprise, a publicly owned national currency, and publicly supported federal lawmakers. All 5 of these capitalist policies have been opposed by a majority of lawmakers from both political parties for the last 30 years. Why? Bribery. But my website does have some very good news. It shows how replacing Reaganism with capitalism would create tens of millions of jobs, eliminate our national debt, restore our infrastructure, protect our environment, provide care for our disabled, sick, and elderly, and ensure life-supporting after-tax incomes for all. So please read my website and carefully consider the arguments and policies that it presents before you vote in this election. I apologize for my anger, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Duda. Our next opening remark will be by Mr. Richard Tissay. Richard served as a member of the Joint Committee on Human Services and Elder Affairs during his tenure in the State Senate, where he was an advocate for individuals with disabilities and senior citizens. He was involved in passing many laws designed to strengthen our state's home care delivery network, protect seniors in public housing, and create stronger penalties to prevent financial exploitation. He also helped pass legislation to make prescription drugs more affordable. As a congressman, Richard's top priorities will be to ensure that seniors have access to housing, excellent medical care, and other needed resources. Richard holds the strong conviction that the federal government needs to keep the promises that it made to our seniors. Richard believes our seniors are the greatest generation. We owe them our gratitude and a strong social safety net to ensure that they have security in their golden years. Welcome, Mr. Tissay.
Hey, thank you very much, and I want to thank the Aging and Disability Resource Consortium of the Greater North Shore for putting on today's event. I think that this is an important time to have an event like this so you can hear from all the different candidates. I realize some people here might not know me. I'm from Wakefield, and I was a state senator there for 20 years and a state representative for 6. When I started my campaign, there's a rest home literally across the street from where I live. A good friend of mine owns it, and he said, hey, when you announce your candidacy, why don't you come over and meet people? So sure enough, that day came, and I called them up, I went over, and boy, everybody came up to me, everybody knew me. When I walked in, I started to get a little too self-assured, and I noticed that in the corner there was a woman watching TV all by herself, and sure enough, I went up to her, put out my hand, and said, do you know who I am? And she looked up at me and said, I'm sorry, son, but if you go to the front desk, I'm sure somebody can tell you. So I just thought I'd get a little levity here. Today's my birthday, so I get extra points for being here. 52 years old. I'm okay with it, but yesterday I got a piece of mail from AARP inviting me to join, so that kind of freaked me out a little. Let me just say, first of all, I did serve in the Senate for 20 years. I asked to be on the Human Service and Elderly Affairs Committee. And I'll tell you, to me, that is where the rubber meets the road as far as government services being able to really help people and help improve their lives. Every major bill that dealt with senior issues, mental illness, developmental disability, physical disability, came before our committee. And I would like to think I became an expert over a 20-year period, and more importantly, a very strong advocate for people who need government. For me, this is personal. My oldest sister is disabled. She's brain injured. She lives in a group home. And I understand what families go through and how difficult it is to get the services that people need and deserve. Now, there's a big debate going on in Washington right now. You have a group of people who want the government to control every aspect of your life. You may not have heard it, but right down to banning chocolate milk in public schools. When this school starts again, the kids are going to go crazy. Then there's another group of people who don't think we need any government at all. I just want you to know that my philosophy is that the government does have a responsibility, a sacred responsibility, to ensure that those who can't take care of themselves receive the resources and the care that they need to lead meaningful lives. I'd also say that, when I go around and talk to people, I'll ask people here, just a show of hands, how many of the people here have kids or grandkids? Just to raise your hand. And how many of you think that your kids and your grandkids are going to have the same quality of life, the same educational opportunity, the same work opportunity, and access to the same type of programs like Social Security and Medicare that you've had in your lifetime? Raise your hand. Usually, you got 2 or 3 people raise their hands. Usually nobody raises their hand. And I think that's indicative of what is going on in this country right now and some of the challenges that we face as a nation. The great thing about being an American is that throughout the course of our history, every generation has passed off to the next generation a country better than they found it, with more opportunity, with better job opportunities, educational opportunities. And here we are today, the first time in American history, we're about to pass off a country to the next generation that's a mess. And really that's what this election is all about. It's an opportunity for people to change things, change the direction of our nation. And again, this debate that we're going to have today is very important because 2 of the biggest issues, Medicare and Social Security, are in peril right now. And we need to make sure that they're preserved and protected for the next generation. So I look forward to being able to answer some questions later on, and thank everybody for coming out today.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. The next opening statement will be by Congressman John Tierney. Congressman Tierney was born and raised in Salem. He worked 3 jobs to put himself through college, owned a small business, and served as president of a local chamber of commerce before being elected to represent you in Congress. In his time there, John has made it a priority to support responsible legislation that creates jobs, ensures veterans get the treatment they deserve, supports small business, and modernizes America's job training system so workers receive the skills and training they need to be hired for jobs in their local areas, and much more. John has been a leader in the fight to preserve and protect Social Security and Medicare. He believes we must ensure that seniors have the help and support they need and have earned. Congressman Tierney's top priority is serving the people of this district. Welcome, Congressman Tierney.
Thank you, and good morning. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mary Margaret. Paul Lanzikis is out here somewhere too, I know, and thank all of you for letting me join you here this morning. While my opponents have either just told you or are going about to tell you what they'll do and what support they will give if elected, there's only one person on this stage who has actually taken the votes and is on it, has a clear record of protecting Social Security and Medicare. These are our shared priorities, and you can look back and see how consistent that support has been. What they claim they'll do, I've done, and done it over and over again, and I will continue to do it in the future. For instance, when the House Republicans put forward legislation that created the donut hole, we voted against that. I voted against that. You remember the donut hole is that provision that says that seniors, when they reach a certain threshold, have to pay 100% of their prescription drug costs, having no more subsidies for a significant period of time, so that Big Pharma would not have to lose any of the money that it was making. I voted against that, and I'll continue to fight on that. When I voted for legislation that would close that donut hole, Republicans voted against it. And in fact, we're closing that donut hole. It's been closed by more than half, and in a couple of years it'll be closed entirely. That'll save seniors some $1,400 per person on that. When I supported legislation that would extend the life of Medicare, some 13 years, Republicans voted against doing that. Every single House Republican voted against that bill. And they've since tried to repeal this bill 45 times. 45 times tried to open up the donut hole again, reduce the time that Medicare has for solvency, and reduce all the other benefits like free preventative exams and like being able to have a wellness exam every year. When House Republicans championed efforts to privatize Social Security in 2005, I was there with you fighting every step of the way to make sure that that didn't happen. We Democrats and people like you over this country had about 1,000 town hall meetings to raise our voice and make sure that it never happened. When House Republicans repeatedly proposed the so-called Paul Ryan budget, and that would voucherize Medicare and end it as we know it today, I've always voted no and will continue to do so. But elections, as we know, are about the future. So we have to look forward as what will be done, and I want to be clear. If elected, my Republican opponent's first vote would be for Mr. Boehner. John Boehner to be the Speaker of the House once again. By doing so, they'd be reaffirming this failed and misguided agenda that would end Medicare as we know it, and that would spend their time suing the President of the United States instead of dealing with the business of the people of this country. That's not an agenda that's good for the people in this room, and it's not an agenda that's good for the people in this district. When I speak to seniors from Beverly to Bedford, from Tewksbury to Lynn, they make clear they want me to continue my work for creating opportunity for their children and their grandchildren and making sure that their retirement is secure. That's what I did when I recently worked with others to pass the Bipartisan Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which allows people to gain the skills they need for jobs that actually exist in their area and allows employers a way to identify and hire qualified employees to move the economy forward. That's what I did when I helped with the Higher Education Opportunity Act, which helps to make sure that we try to keep college costs down and give students more Pell Scholarships, and if they do have to take out a loan, reduces the interest rate on those loans and provides them other alternative ways to more affordably pay off for their education. That's what I did when I was voted recently for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill that would allow us to have resources to fix our highways, our roads and our bridges, and also put sizable amounts of people back to work. We have much more to do. We can do a better infrastructure bill that puts more people back to work and fixes more of our problems so the next generation doesn't have to do it. We can try to make college more affordable, make sure that students have an easier way to access and afford their higher education that they need. Continue to make sure that people have the skills they need for the jobs they get, and continue to make sure that seniors have financial security in their retirement. Jobs, opportunity, strengthening and protecting Medicare and Social Security, that's what I've done, and that's with your help that I'll continue to do. So thank you again for inviting me here today. I look forward to the rest of the questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman King. Our next candidate is Mr. Seth Moulton. Seth attended Marblehead Public Schools, Phillips Academy, Andover, and Harvard College. Following his college graduation, Seth joined the United States Marine Corps. Seth served 4 tours of duty in Iraq, 2 tours as an infantry platoon commander, and 2 tours on a small counterinsurgency team working directly under then Lieutenant General David Petraeus. After his final tour, Seth earned an MBA from the John F. Kennedy School of Government and an MBA from Harvard Business School. Pursuing his interest in transportation and infrastructure, Seth spent a year in Texas as the managing director of Texas Central Railway, a company building a high-speed rail line between Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. Seth then returned to the North Shore of Massachusetts to start his own healthcare business, which is partnering with Johns Hopkins University to treat obesity and diabetes. Seth lives in Salem and sits on the board of the local YMCA. Welcome, Mr. Moulton.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. If there's one thing that you should know about me and something that you should take away from today, it's that I am a leader you can trust. And I'm going to explain to you 3 reasons why I'm a leader you can trust. One is I'm a leader you can trust to preserve Social Security and Medicare. Second, I'm a leader you can trust to get America back on track. And third, I'm a leader you can trust to never forget what it means to be a public servant. So first, I'm a leader you can trust to preserve Social Security and Medicare. Social Security and Medicare are foundations of our society. But for me, it's very personal, because my mom and dad are at retirement age, and they rely on Social Security and Medicare. My family relies on Social Security and Medicare. We don't have a big savings account or lots of stocks to care for their medical care as they get older. To ensure that their next 20 or 30 years are as bright as their past 20 or 30 years, we rely on Social Security and Medicare. But it's also personal for me because we need to have Social Security and Medicare, not just for your generation, but for my generation as well. So you can count on me to be a leader who you can trust to not only preserve Social Security and Medicare for today, for today's generation, but also ensure it's there for my generation when we retire 30 years from now. So I'm a leader you can trust to preserve Social Security and Medicare. I'm a leader you can trust to get this country back on track. We've never had a worse Congress in our nation's history. It's measured by the number of bills that are passed, and it's never been worse than it is today. Fundamentally, we can't fix Congress by sending the same people back again and again to try a little bit harder. It's time for some new leadership. I respect the Congressman for his 18 years of service, but 18 years is a long time. And with all due respect to the Congressman, he's only passed one bill in 18 years. I believe we can do better than that. I believe we can do better than that for this district. I believe we can do better